We are live, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Good evening, folks. This is the November 8th, 2021 meeting of the Painesville Township Zoning Commission meeting. Welcome, everybody. And let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call?
Bailey, who's not here. Daryl,
Here.
John,
Here.
Amy,
Here.
and Chairman.
Here, I think. Here. All right, did we receive any inquiries from the public at all, Rachel or Harley, for this meeting?
No, Mr. Chairman.
No.
Okay, having none, I'll call the regular meeting to order. And acknowledgement of the minutes that were of the September 13th meeting. Does anybody from the commission have any additions, subtractions, edits that was sent out by Rachel? Which I have a silence, which means I think everybody is okay with it. So I'll entertain a motion for acceptance of the September 13th meeting.
So moved.
Daryl made the motion.
I'll second.
Amy seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Okay, Bailey, who's not here. Daryl,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
and Chairman.
Yes. Okay. We have no public hearings, no architectural reviews, no new business. We have one piece of old business, or at least two. Let's go to one, which is rewrite sign section. Now, we have an October 18, 21 rewrite in front of us. So I'm going to assume, Harley, if you can describe us what this is and what we have in front of us, so we can go from there.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So the revision in front of you is simply the revision with the changes as discussed and requested by the board at the last discussion of Section 28. That is all that has been done thus far to this section. So this way, the commission rather has an updated copy to work from and suggest any edits to.
Okay. All right. I see we still have the table in there.
Yes, that
Yeah, we
has
were-
not been, that
We
has
were
not
gonna
been
talk
changed
about
yet.
that.
So I think when if we want to, we can talk about, I guess the table, I think when we were, if I recall correctly, back from September, we were, we're through this, and we wanted something easier to enforce from our standpoint, and if I'm not mistaken, also easy for the homeowner to, know that they're, not violating the code. I think it's where we were heading toward, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, well,
Go ahead, Daryl?
as I understand it, it's not so much the homeowner because they are specifically prescribed certain square footages. Where it gets a little strange is when you get into businesses and
Yes.
what's there.
Okay, that's right.
I must have mulled over this thing for at least 2 or 3 hours at 3 or 4 different times. What made it hard was that the the first chart didn't have its titles all together with it. So you have to bounce back and forth and figure out what's going on. I think I got it figured out. And if I understand this thing right, he's already got everything calculated.
Okay,
All we need to do is know what the frontage is, and you can tell them how much sign square footage they can have.
Okay,
And if I'm looking at this thing, I got notes all over the place here.
go ahead.
The formula up here that I was working with, this here PCA, if I can read my own writing here. Let's see. That's what you're solving for. The LH2 is,
Letter height in inches?
Letter
Yeah.
height,
letter height in inches,
squared.
and it's to the second power,
Right, squared.
okay?
Mhm.
Then you have 25, multiply 25, divided by 144, and add to it 1.5,
Or multiplied by 1.5.
or multiply, I'm sorry, I'm not seeing things too well.
Don't worry, neither do I. I get lucky once in a while.
I only got one eye. Then there's some letter heights and stuff down here below where you take these from,
Mm-hmm.
and depending on your speed limit on the street, if it's 25, then simple, and you go across here to find the one that fits into the
Mm-hmm.
category of the commercial or industrial complex you're talking about. And then at 35, there's another set, and there's a multi-lane at 35 miles an hour,
Mm-hmm.
which would fit
20,
about 20 mostly.
correct. Oh, and, yeah, around 20, correct.
Yeah. Otherwise, most of the other streets, as far as I know, got 2-lane.
Correct.
But your 4-lane actually is right here on 20,
Mm-hmm.
all the way through the township.
Correct.
So basically, it'll work, but I don't see why he didn't tell Bailey how to work this thing. That's kind of cruel, unusual punishment. When you have something this complicated, and yet it's kind of simple, because he's already worked out all the calculations, all you have to do is plug in the numbers.
Yes. And that's depending upon.
And you have to know what numbers to plug in where.
Mhm. And that's basically would be Harley's job,
Yeah.
if someone wants to put a sign up. And
Harley, I'm sorry, I said the wrong name.
That's okay. That's okay.
You got Bailey on my mind for some reason.
So, that's okay. So,
I can see her confusion, I really can.
I understand that too.
But how to make it simpler? The only way to just make it simpler is to have them hand you a drawing and figure out the square footage, and you take their word for it. And you don't know how to do that. Otherwise, you get a scaled drawing and a planimeter, which most of you probably never heard about that, except Ted, he knows what a planimeter is. And they can be a little bear to work with.
Yes.
You're running it around the perimeter. You do it 3 times and average it. You get a little target you run around there, and it takes some time.
Took some time, it was a pain.
The only other thing is to take and triangulate it, and that takes a whopping bunch of time.
I'm sorry.
So I think if Harley understood it was not even what these things mean, I can see her confusion real quick. But it took me almost 3 days of just looking at this over a period of time to figure out what's going on. At the time, the column titles weren't on the same page with that first,
Right,
and it made it awful hard to figure out what was going on.
right.
So all your stuff is here, and then you go down here into 28-1, and you can make some additional adjustments based on speed limit.
Correct. And the nice thing about this is what we're doing here is not dictating what you can
Yeah.
put on a sign. Just limiting the, due to whether you're on a 2-lane roadway, a 4-lane roadway, or you're on a speed limit of 35 or a speed limit of 25. This is the total sign area you can only have. And basically, Harley, I'm thinking for me, if this is what we want, that we'd use this, but they'd have to come in here for a permit, whatever, however do this. They'd have to come in here and just give us the, give you, where they wanna put the sign at. How, you know, exactly where, because the regulations, how far is it off the right-of-way line, how off the roadway, and give you a replica of what that sign would look like, and the size of lettering, and see if it fits the chart here. It may be the way to go. I think we've allowed a lot of stuff that wasn't allowed before. I think the balloon figures and things like that, I think we kept in. I mean, it's a nice, it's our ninth draft, which is not bad. But I think this is probably, in my opinion, the best thing we could, come up with right now. I mean, it's simple enough. I mean, that it works. We're not trying to, as Jason kept telling us, not to violate the free speech, which is not. We're not doing that. All we're doing is limiting your size and limiting your lettering, based upon a few common sense factors: speed, and where the environment is, whether it's a multi-lane or a single lane. Excuse me. So, to me, this is a pretty good version of what it started out to be, and I think, in my opinion, and the rest of the members can chime right in, is that I'd like to do is have us take this, read it, make sure this is what we really want, and this is what we really want. Harley can make a nice clean copy for us, and we can go for it and take it to go to a public hearing. I don't know if I'm really ready to go to public hearing for myself, because the fact is, it's been since September since we last saw this, and I know we went through some changes in that September meeting. In that August-September meeting, we went through this, and it has its iterations, and this is where we got to be right now.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that for the boards, for me, I like to instead of making a decision today, whether to take it and go to a public hearing on it next meeting, that I would like to be able to digest this, what we have, from the rewrites, edits that we did back in the last couple of meetings, to make sure this is what we really want to do. And if everybody likes it in December, we can take it from old business to public hearing. So
I have a question
okay.
to ask Harley. Have you had to use this yet, Harley?
No, thankfully not. I'll be completely honest, it's still unusable to me. I absolutely could not tell you what the maximum square footage of a sign is based on the table and illustration. I'm looking at section 20, where is it? 28.11A1, and it says that for any single business enterprise may have an area which has been calculated and determined by the standards as put forth in Figure 28-1 and Illustration 28-1. And looking at both the table as well as the illustration, I don't understand the difference between the 25-mile-an-hour simple, but letter height in inches is 10, but in the sign table is 10, but in the illustration it's 23.95 inches in height. I still don't understand what the distance from the front wall to the opposite side pavement edge in feet means. And I don't understand why we have the primary copy area measurement as well as the secondary copy area measurement in our definitions. The secondary copy is signs that are meant to be read by an automobile that is parked. The primary copy area is a sign that is meant to be read by vehicles in motion. And I cannot tell you what the difference in those signs are. I cannot tell you a business that would say, well, this sign is intended only for parked vehicles. However, this one is meant for vehicles that are driving at this speed limit. That, it doesn't make any sense to me. I'm very frustrated with
I can imagine.
so for me, I would say that the table, for me as a person with my individual limitations in this area, I could not explain to someone how to use it, and that's my job. It is my job to explain to contractors, residents, business owners what this means, and I could not explain it to anybody.
And the thing is, what's needed is, is that you have to be able to explain it to them, because
Yeah.
if I come to you and say, I wanna put a sign on my building, and so, this is what I'm proposing, and to go to you, and say, okay, am I in violation or not in violation? I need to know that.
Yes.
So are you looking at, what you're asking for is maybe, instead of having a primary and a secondary, which is a source of potential argument between somebody,
I would think so, but I mean, if maybe Daryl has a better understanding with his background in how to use this, I'm willing to have that conversation with him and trying to get the use out of
I'll be willing to
this.
do what I can to help you out. What I'd like to see is probably the last one that Rich did. And you go from there and see how it applies back to something that he's already worked on. A lot of times that tells you as much or more than what we have in front of us.
So we've never processed a permit with this type of table or measurements or anything
interesting.
ever. Rich came up with this when he did his revisions, and it's, at least that I've seen, it's never been put to practice. Definitely not in the township, as it's not in our resolution and it's unenforceable. But if Rich took it and pretended, created a scenario where he tried to work it, I am not privy to those notes. And I can't imagine they're in existence if they ever were.
That's the one thing I'd like to see is the scenario and how you work it with it. We could also do a thing where we have information like on Giant Eagle. If there's anything in the file that tells you how much square footage is in those letters and things of this nature, we can apply it against this and see how it worked out in relation to that. That's the only other one I know of as any type of large copy.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one, I think, was done in Painesville Township.
Well, the other thing is, for me, in the environment, they're simple and complex.
Yeah.
Now, is there a definition in here, and if I missed it,
That's- I
of what
haven't
simple
seen it.
is and what complex is for environment?
Where did this thing come from, anyway?
No,
It's as good as mine.
I guess, is this supposed to be the maximum height? So you could do something smaller if you wanted to, correct?
correct.
And I was thinking of Giant Eagle, too. We have one that faces 44 over there, and the lettering itself, the height is not the only thing. I mean, you have how broad the letters are, if it was a pencil type of shape or a fancy shape, there's a lot of things that would interfere with reading that.
I also know
You
that,
know-
I'm sorry.
Many times I've gone through there, I've never looked up to see if Giant Eagle had anything on the side of the building.
I think
No,
they have
I know.
signs on almost every side.
I'm going there tonight, so I gotta go there tonight. But the other thing is, I know that if you look at the traffic roadway signs, look at street name signs, there's a capital letter and small. Now they've gone to that, because it's easier for people to read. And I'm not sure, you know, to me, if, if I want to argue to Harley, you know, I've got a simple and I got a complex. To me, I think we may want to think about getting rid of that and either go with one type of environment, complex, I mean, multi-lane or just a single lane. You know, I mean, I don't. And then I understand what she's saying about primary copy and secondary copy. I didn't think about that. I mean, secondary copy is for a parked car, and a primary is one for a car, you know, in motion.
Yeah.
But I can maintain, if I wanted to, argue that a car parked in front of my business is a parked car, so I should be able to be in the secondary and not worry about it, the primary. Or we don't worry about secondary, just say,
Here's what you can have.
moving, this is it. You could have,
This may be a little bit too complex, but,
yeah, so that's,
the way I understood primary, that's the big sign up front, like a Giant Eagle. And you've got Huntington and some others that are listed outside down lower, and they're smaller.
right,
But you still can read them from a long ways off.
yes, you can.
And you could also still argue that the Huntington sign is intended for moving vehicles as well,
Yeah.
just as much as Giant Eagle is.
That's correct. And your point is that, and John, I mean, your point and John's point, well, your point is that, you know, I'd like to have this as simple as take as many arguments as we can out, at the same time, be able to regulate it. And what now we're down to is regulating the size and the height of the lettering for a different environment. And again, I can argue, I mean, I don't, if we don't have a definition of what a simple environment is, or what a complex environment is, or what a multi-lane environment is, we don't have that definition in there, that can be up to point of interpretation, AKA argument. And
Good point.
I think we need to have that in there. If we want to do that, or just take the environment out, say a
Oh, I
single
can
lane.
Yeah, I can understand where probably we have problems with it, there's no definitions of those other things. And I didn't find them either.
And no definition for primary, and no definition for secondary.
Well, there are definitions, but the definitions state that the primary copy is the words or message on a sign meant to be read
Oh,
by
I'm sorry.
traveling vehicles. And secondary is the words or messages on a sign which are meant to be read by automobiles that are idling or parked along the
Okay.
roadway.
I stand corrected, which is okay.
You know,
So-
I could throw in some other variables on there that would throw it off too, because if you have a sign that's directly 90 degrees from the road, or one that's slanted at 45 degrees, then you can read that 45-degree ones for a lot longer in your car than you can a 90-degree one.
Yeah.
You know, so it has to be something that's gonna be a lot more simple than this in order to make it work.
Um,
I'm all for looking a little longer with it, because I only was able to get as far as I got with it and try and figure out how you might use it. But there's some things still missing when I'm getting from the conversation tonight.
So I know we're spinning our wheels. I hate doing that. But do you want, we want to table this as is, review it, maybe like Daryl, talk with Harley a little bit, and maybe make some suggestions to her as we read this thing between now and December, and go from there. I'm not trying to hurry up and blow this off, but I mean, it's just a matter of, do we really want to sit down and, I mean, this is a pretty good iteration of where we are at with this thing. And I think we're close. I think, I'm hoping that we are. And that one of the things that I'd like to have Jason do, if he can, for us, Jason, is read it as we have changed this from the first time you saw this to now, to make sure legally we're not infringing on someone's rights, you know, of the signing. And if we get that, if you can look at that, make sure we don't have a problem with, First Amendment rights and other legal aspects that you were concerned about. We can take a look at it from our standpoint and see if we understand it. So, that's where I'm at right now with it. So I'm not sure what the board's pleasure is.
Are these measurements applying to electronic boards also, or the electronic message
No,
board?
I didn't see that as being that way. It's basically, they have a certain size board they can do, and they have to fit their copy within that. They have a certain amount of time it can show, and it has to switch. I think it's 8 seconds.
Mhm.
It moves on to something else.
Yeah,
That to me is totally separate from this.
Yes.
What I see this is relating to Giant Eagle stores or something like that, or one of the larger industries that's trying to advertise on to a freeway or to in the local streets. All over those guys has something with their name on it. And it shows up on, I think, 3, maybe 4 sides. Because they have almost 4 sides. They got the one to 44. In fact, you can see the back of it and the side of it from 44.
Mhm.
And then in front of it, you see from Freedom Road. The other side, I'm not sure. You can see it from Freedom Road, but not for very long.
Right, right. So I'm just wondering, what is the board's, what's the board's pleasure? Think it'd be best for us to table it and just kind of look at it for a good look, and see what we can come up with, see if we want to make some minor tweaks to it or whatever we want to do.
Yeah. I'd like to find out more how Harley's feeling about it, a little more directly, from the standpoint. I can understand her having confusion with it.
Yeah.
But I want to see where the confusion is and how we can make it better.
I think
Or
Harley,
have
that's,
her understand it, one of the two. I mean, I could, if somebody handed me this thing and no explanations, it's like, huh?
Right, right.
What are you gonna do about this? How do I handle this thing?
and I think Harley, that would probably be good for you to be able to tell us where your problem areas are at.
Mhm.
Then we can work through that. Again, I mean, so what, if we have to go through this another month, 2 months, big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, this is this is a total, transformation, what it was
Yeah.
before.
Mhm.
And,
And we need to get it right as much as we can.
yeah, as best we can, and we'll find things down the road that we may have to change it, but for the most part, you're the one that has to enforce this. So, I would like your input for sure, as far as where your problem areas are. And then, like I said, after we read it and discuss your problem areas, then we can talk about that in December.
Okay,
And then Jason can help us a little bit with the legal aspects of it. So if the board's okay with this, I don't think we need a motion, we'll just table this till December.
I understood what Josh told us before, you can, let's table it, just check, Danny. Yeah, you can table it.
And
I'm thinking too, we already covered the size of the sign that you're allowed to put up in different areas. Now we're talking about how big the lettering can be on that sign. Is it really necessary? I mean, if we say you can have a 4x8 sign on the specific building, now do we have to go in and say each of those letters have to be a certain size? It can't be over a certain size?
Again, that's something we can talk about.
Well, I see where John's going, how does this affect all the other signs, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
I don't want to say wrong.
Well, I'm thinking, that's Johnny, I mean, to me, this sign thing is for any sign you want to put up on your, is a sign. You want to put in the, see here, it was a standardized signing in legal and reasonable manner which promotes economic vitality, blah, 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 safety, et cetera, about all signs. either in commercial or non-commercial creativity and individualism. So, yeah, we're talking about all the signs that are commercial and non-commercial, that are on people, that are on businesses and on homeowners' property. For the most part, now, and then we're looking at, I think the sign height is important, especially in commercial, because of the fact that in traffic, the traffic signs you see out there, there's a certain height requirement, depending on which type of sign it is. And that's because of traffic safety, but in this case, I mean, you don't want it to be too large, but you don't want it to be too small, because people are like driving down the road and I want to see something. I mean, I think the size of the sign and the lettering is important for that too, and I think that's what we got to look at. And I think that's the reason why I would like to take this and read it and look, digest it a little bit more.
You mentioned something about sign size in relation to speed limit, that you have charts to that.
Yes.
Anybody getting copies of that?
No. Yeah, I can get that for us and email that to you.
Okay.
I'll do that.
I want to see if how he relates to that,
Okay.
because I'm sure it's in here, but it doesn't say that.
Yep. Okay. Lettering requirements due to lettering. I know that it's in there.
The least you could, that was left Harley an explanation how this thing works,
Mm-hmm.
but he didn't do that.
Okay. So if nobody objects, we're gonna table this rewrite till next month. Take a look at it. Harley can take a look at it for her problems as it is written, and then we can digest what we learn and here, and we'll go from there. So if there's objection, we'll table the case 20 ZZ07, section 28 rewrite sign section to the December 2021 meeting. Hearing no objections, we will table this. And we move on to amendment to section 7, non-conforming uses. Harley?
So this one, Mr. Chairman, after discussing what I know the reason to be, so the reason why Rich left it on there was he wanted to close what he saw as a potential loophole. After discussing it with legal, we have discovered that there really is no way to legally close the loophole that Rich was attempting to close. So the issue was, Rich did not appreciate that someone could make the statement or make the claim that their sign being destroyed by the elements means something like long-term overall degradation from rain, rust, etc. Rich wanted it to be interpreted to mean only tornado, hurricane, a fire, things like that. That is when it's replaceable. But according to legal, based on what ORC states in terms of non-conforming, legal non-conforming structures, we have to give them every opportunity to make repairs or replacements of a legal non-conforming so they can keep it. So basically, the loophole that Rich was trying to close, we don't have the legal authority to close because it wouldn't be enforceable.
Okay.
According to legal. So my suggestion would be to just remove it from the agenda.
Well, if that's the case, and I hear no objection from anybody, if there is an objection, please say it now. We're gonna take this agenda item off forever, unless legal can find a way for us to do it, and if he can't, he can bring it up at that point in time. So let's take it out. Okay, we had no closed public hearings, no items being held for public hearings. Zoner inspector's report.
I do have some good news. The trustees have decided to make the assistant zoning inspector position full-time. They're also increasing the hourly wage, to try to make it more appetizing to potential employees. So we should hopefully, fingers crossed, be getting a substantial candidate that's willing to stick around with us.
And
So-
help you, assist you.
Yes, so we start to see some quicker
Okay.
turnaround on things.
Okay, great. Anything else?
No, Mr. Chairman, that is it.
Okay. Any other further business that comes before the commission? I do have one business. Everybody, I hope you have a nice, enjoyable Thanksgiving. And,
you as well.
any other, any other business before the commission? If not, our next meeting is Monday, December 13th, 2021. And not, I will adjourn the meeting at 7:06. No objection.